Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be controlling insecure Jack in the Box man. I've got an email. This is from a guy. I think he's new, relatively new to my work. He's 32, and the reason why I chose his email is because you could see the consequences of becoming jealous, insecure, blowing your top, being what Dr. Dominic Deanna likes to refer to as a jack in the box. Where it's like, you guys probably remember these as a kid. They got the little box, you crank the handle. I'm not talking about the hamburger place, but the toy where you crank it, it's like da 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 da, and then eventually it goes, and either a Jack in the Box Joker pops out, or some kind of monster pops out. And that's kind of a metaphor for what happens to guys that lose it and they get upset. And like this guy, he says he just totally lost control of his ego, and he basically ruined what was seemed to be a pretty cool, casual affair with this girl that he had seen a couple times. And so now it's at the point where I don't want to give away all the details, so we'll go through it, but you can see the consequences of just losing it on a woman. Because masculinity is calm, it's relaxed. It doesn't mean you don't get angry, but what it does mean is that you don't let the anger hijack you. You don't let your being upset emotionally hijack you to the point where you behave like this guy does, because then you're not going to make any women feel safe and comfortable around you, because they're like, this dude's a lunatic. So with that said, before I forget, my latest quotes book, Quotes, Ruminations, and Contemplations, Volume 2, is now out. It's available in Kindle, paperback. This is actually the hardcover version, and it's now available at audible.com, and it's also available on itunes.com. You guys have been asking me, hey, when's the audiobook going to come out? So it's finally out. And so big shout out to Jen and Soleil, who did most of the work on putting the actual written books together. So thanks, guys. They actually, both the girls did, you guys haven't met Soleil, she works behind the scenes, but they did most of the work to compile these. Because what was interesting about writing these two quotes books is that normally when you write a book, you write an outline, and then you record your discussion of each point in the outline. You send it to a ghostwriter, and they make that into a book, and then you go through the editing process and change things and add things as you edit it. But with this, what we did is we had a list of 250 quotes, and then when I went in the studio with my sound engineer, what we did is I'd read the quote and then kind of freestyle, a lot like I've done in the years on my video newsletters. And so we actually recorded the audiobook first, and then the girls went back and transcribed everything that became the physical copies of the books. And so we've been working on, actually they've been doing most of the work, Jen and Soleil have, for like the past year, almost 2 years now. I think they've been working on these. So it's a couple big projects, and I think in total with all the quotes that I got, there might be somewhere between like 8 or 10 volumes total. So probably over the next decade or so, I'll just slowly record those and release them, because it is a lot of work and a lot of time to put these things together. So it's available everywhere, so we appreciate your support. And so back to our regularly scheduled email newsletter. Let's go through it. He says, hey, Corey, I'm a new follower and reader of your book. Obviously, he's talking about the first book, 3% Man. He says, I've read it once after an episode, which I had a few weeks back. I'm 32 and I'm doing good. I'm running my own business. I'm traveling all across Europe and Asia. And so my questions are, number one, what did I do wrong? Number two, how do I overcome this and my own ego because it hit me hard? Well, you're going to have to exercise self-control, because the reality is that we've all had this experience where you're upset, you're mad about something, and then the phone rings, and instead of being upset and like, what do you want? You're like, hey, how are you? Oh, I'm doing great. We're just fine here. Things are wonderful. Everybody's had that experience. So you purposely, even though you may have been in a heated discussion, when the phone rings, maybe it's your mother or somebody that you care about, or your grandma or somebody, you're not going to be an asshole to grandma. So you pick up the phone, you're like, hey, grandma, oh, everything's great here. When you might have just been really getting into it with somebody. And so the point being is that we have the ability to exercise restraint. And that's what masculinity is. It's dangerous, but kind. Dangerous, but under control. And when you lose control, that's what makes women feel unsafe around you. So he says, a few weeks back, I wrote a girl on Instagram. She's Russian, and I asked her to meet for a drink. She said, maybe, we'll see. But finally one night, we went for drinks. Typically when a woman says maybe, we'll see, that means no usually. But he doesn't mention what else he said. It's just maybe she changed her mind. But the point being is that when you hear something like that, it's not a sign of super high enthusiasm. So that's something to pay attention to. But it's also possible a few days later, a week or two later, because as I talk about in 3% Man, wait 2 weeks, then try one more shot. Maybe she's in a different headspace then. And if she still gives you the same lack of enthusiasm, then move on to the next. He says, we had a great time and ended up in a hotel and had the indoor Olympics. Well, congratulations. Hopefully you guys both got the gold medal. He says, I didn't text her for 3 days, and on the 4th day, the same date happened again. Then on the next date, dinner, and she started asking me questions like, who am I going on trips? Are you married? Because this guy's, he's traveling all over the place, and so he's obviously been telling her about his life and what he's doing. And she's starting to think, is this guy just, is he cheating on his wife? Has he got a girlfriend or a family somewhere? He says that she can be exclusive. And he says, it was too quick for me and I played it cool. All I wanted was fun. Well, did she actually ask you to be exclusive? Did she hint that she was looking at being exclusive? When a woman starts throwing those things around after 3 or 4 dates, the best question is always, what do you mean? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What is it you want? Most of us guys, we just make assumptions. And that's what, just from reading that, it looks like he just made an assumption as to what that meant. He says, then I went to Dubai, and she went to Paris for a week. And after that, we were planning a trip together to Germany. She was watching all of my Instagram stories. She replied to them. But I found out that the last day of her Paris trip, she went over to see some guy. Not just a friend, just a stranger that she has met. Now keep in mind, he said he wanted to have fun. No attachments. And so he's making the assumption that she wanted to be serious, but he's like, he didn't commit to it. So she's a free agent, he's a free agent. He has no holds or control on her. Besides, they saw each other 3 times. People can hide who they are for about 90 days, and these guys obviously don't live in the same area. They're both traveling all over the place. There's no way you can possibly get to know somebody and what they're really like with 3 dates. He says, I couldn't believe this. Yes, I was jealous as fuck in that moment. So, translation, I became a crazy jack-in-the-box and flipped out. So he says, the next day we should meet and go to Germany, but I couldn't imagine to go and have fun with her because he was totally uncentered. Now keep in mind, he says, hey, I don't want anything serious, just casual, not looking to settle down here. And then as soon as he finds out she's with another dude, Jack in the Box. So I told her, and that she said she doesn't belong to me. We are not a couple. And that I have too many girls anyway, etc. Yeah, so she got the impression that he was just hooking up. He was a free agent. She's a free agent. And she's like, what? So this is also good communication comes in because he didn't ask her, what do you mean? Are you saying you want to be exclusive? What are you telling me? He just made an assumption. Oh, she wants to be serious with me, but I don't want to be serious with her. I'm just having fun. He says, we had a fight. I lost it like never before. In other words, he gave himself permission to lose it. He decided it was okay to lose it and become emotionally hijacked. And that's what scares women. Because masculinity is dangerous, but under control and kind. Especially with the ladies and around kids. Because you freak out around kids and kids aren't going to like you very much. They can sense it. They can sense when the dude's got his shit together. Kids always know. If the kids like you and they start climbing all over you like a jungle gym and wanting to play with you, that's a good sign. If all the kids are like, they're backing away and they're holding on to some other adult's leg and hiding behind it, it's like, that's not a good sign. He says, my ego got hit so hard. It has never happened to me, and usually I was doing this, so maybe it's karma. Well, as Edgar Cayce used to say in his readings, he says, we're always meeting self. In other words, what we put out in the world, we tend to get back. We're always meeting ourselves. What we put out always comes back and is reflected back to us. So he says, after a few days of silence, I wrote her and asked her how she was. He says, I wanted to close out things between us on good terms. He says, so I sent her flowers to her work with a goodbye message. Well, she replied back, and we ended up at dinner that day. We smiled, had a good time, and we set a date for dinner in 3 days, but she canceled the last minute. And now, to any of my ideas, she replies some diplomatic no answers. She avoids me and doesn't want to meet. You never try to keep somebody that doesn't want to keep you. You don't keep pursuing somebody that's telling you no and constantly rejecting you because you freaked her out. She's like, thinks you're a lunatic. You're a control freak. You're jealous. You're insecure. You're emotionally hijacked, jack in the box. Women don't like that. It scares them. Because if you're not under control and you don't have self-control, you're definitely not going to be able to handle a woman that pushes your buttons. He says, I'm confused because that last dinner, it felt like before. Well, if you bottom line our actions, no sex or any intimacy happened. So obviously it wasn't like before. And plus there's another guy in the picture for her, and you lost your shit. He says, I thought we were cool. Well, if you look at her actions, obviously you're not cool. Looks like you may have disqualified yourself from her life. He says, we laughed for 2 hours, and she suggested a trip together again. A few notes. From day one, she replied to ideas of a date. Maybe, we'll see, etc. So the other thing that you're ignoring here is there's no resounding, oh, hell yeah, I'd love to see you. It's like, maybe we'll see. If I don't get any better offers, yeah, maybe I'll go out with you. That's the thing you're not paying attention to. Women marry guys all the time that they're not in love with. Women go out with guys and sleep with guys that they're not that into because it's better than nothing. Women are insecure as well. Women settle all the time. The problem for most guys is they haven't read 3% Man and they can't really tell if the woman is into them or not. And so they go marry some bridezilla and then bad things happen because they married somebody that's just not that into them. And then they're shocked when she runs off with their best friend or somebody else. He says, she is Russian and she told me that Russian girls never write or reach out first. I have found that to be not true. Women are women. If they like you, if they trust you, as long as you're not a jack in the box, they will pursue you, assuming they're normal. Not the lunatic or the control freak or the structured girl. He says, even now, she always replies to me quickly, and she always reacts to my stories. Is she just being nice? She just doesn't want to meet. Well, if she doesn't want to meet, never try to keep somebody in your life who doesn't want to keep you in theirs. And so you've asked her out several times, and she keeps saying, maybe, no, Stop calling, stop texting, stop asking. The quickest way to get somebody else's attention is to remove yours. And you're giving her all this attention, but she doesn't want to meet. She doesn't want to do anything fun with you. So, stop asking. Remove all of your attention from her and see if she reaches out to you. Because you've got to give women the opportunity to follow through on their commitments and plans with you, or to flake out and disappear from your life forever. And that's what you want to know. If she likes you, if she's interested in anything romantically, if she's truly willing to forgive you for your jack-in-the-box moment and all the nasty things you probably said in that moment, she'll be in touch. And if she doesn't really give a shit, you'll never hear from her again. So do you have the balls to let go and see what happens? And have the attitude of, if she never reaches out to me again, I will never speak to her again. We will completely go our separate ways, and that'll be it. We will ghost each other permanently. So that's what I would do if I were you, because you've tried all this pursuing, and she keeps going, maybe, we'll see. When a woman says those things, she's not interested. And she was doing that from the beginning. So from what you shared, she really wasn't that into you from the get-go. But your ego got in the way and created a train wreck. But the bottom line is she did go out with you. So she was willing to give you the benefit of the doubt or a chance. But you want to make sure she chooses you as well, and she makes the effort. And so you're constantly asking her out. She's constantly saying no. Stop asking. Stop calling. Let her do all the pursuing, calling, and texting, because you haven't backed off at all. That's part of your problem. So and then he asked her about it, obviously, and she's like, oh, well, us Russian girls, we just never call our text guys first. That's bullshit. Structured ones probably don't. But normal women, they can't help it. They want to bond and connect. They want to hear from you. They want to text you. They want to see how you're doing. Hey, the girl's a woman's favorite pickup line is, hey. Conversation starter, hey. So lazy. But the reality is most guys are just happy to get the hey. He says, is it lost? Flip a coin. It could go either way. If you stop contacting her, never ever call or contact her again for any reason, and if you never hear from her, then yeah, it's definitely lost. He says, I really want to move on, but after a few days, I always write her like a 15-year-old boy. And I said, and that's exactly why she doesn't want to go out with you, because you're still showing a total lack of self-control. Because when you love and value yourself, you're not going to keep calling and texting somebody and asking them out when they just keep giving you the maybe, no thank you, I can't, I'm busy, I got to get my head together, I'm not sure where I'm able to be at this point in my life, or whatever it happens to be. So if you got a question or a challenge and you'd like to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.